Welcome, friends. I'm Tanya Long, and this is Reset. Each week, we share conversations with thought leaders, innovators, and the dreamers and doers who are reshaping the future of work, technology, longevity, and purpose. So settle in and let's explore what happens when purpose meets possibility. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reset with Tanya on KPCR LP 92.9 FM. And today we have another remote edition. While I'm out in the woods playing on my Airstream, I have arranged for a podcast with somebody I met, about a year ago. He's just fascinating, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to get him onto the show. He's in New York City, so it's not real easy for him to trot down to Los Gatos with us. So today I am just thrilled to welcome Shaun Mader to Reset. Shaun is a leadership strategist, but he is also so much more. He teaches corporate executives and business people to move from friction to flow, and he builds cultures around trust. But his path is not your typical corporate path. Shaun, he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He just came back from jiu-jitsu class, I believe. He's also a celebrated photographer, and he captures the most beautiful images of pain and resilience in his work with the Wounded Warriors Project and some fascinating work he's done over the years in Calcutta with the red light district and with children. And that India connection, I think, is one of the things that brought us together because we are both affected by the time that we spent in India. Today, he also, other connections, he has his own podcast, the Trusted Leader Podcast, and he's writing his first book. And he has not asked me for any advice yet, so I'm wondering why that's the case.
It's coming.
But he's writing his first book. It will come. Shaun, for me, is all about resilience, connectedness, trust, and creativity. And so I think we're going to have a really fun conversation for all of you. Shaun, welcome to Reset.
Thank you so much for having me. And I will take the flattery, as difficult as it is sometimes.
Manage.
Yeah,
Just
I'll
manage.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Good. So I talked about some of the things you did, like the friction to flow consulting and your athletic background, the whole photography thing that I would really encourage people to go to your website because it's just beautiful. What are you working on now that's the most exciting thing for you?
Well, you did mention the book that I'm writing, a title called Teamwear.
Okay. Teamwear.
Teamwear. And it came from a lot of coaching of groups and executives, consulting, and it came out of a point of frustration, actually. For anybody who's a coach or works in that capacity, consulting, I think we all have this experience of we start off with these grand ambitions with a client, but the reality is there's just some new crisis that pops up, and so a lot of our work that we're aspiring to gets derailed by just the normal flow of things that pop up in a fast-moving environment. And I realized I was really was coaching people just to respond better to crisis. And the goal was always to get upstream, to get above that so you could be proactive instead of constantly feeling like a short order cook. How do you get your teams to think more strategically? And I was working with a client, and it just kept happening. In this case, it was another crisis that should have been spotted weeks or months before had now, that could have been a symptom, had gone into a full-blown crisis. And almost out of exasperation, I said, well, what if I just sent your people these questions? Like, what should we have our eye on that if we don't deal with it now could be a crisis in a month or two? And just started asking questions about what they needed for the week. Simple things that allowed them to think out what they're looking at and report. And it was this small but very powerful insight, was that there was no practice. There was no regular structure in place in order to develop leaders and to develop teams simultaneously on the work that they're actually working on. And that was the first insight that gave rise to this idea of Teamwear, which was a play off of, we have our hardware, we have our software, and if any one of those systems broke down, we'd stop the works, we'd throw everything at it. But people will come out of a 2-hour planning session and nobody has more clarity than when they walked in, and people aren't taking charge of the situation. And so I said, okay, there's something here. And so we created this process called TeamFlow Architecture. And it's been really
Yes.
effective to help leaders get upstream, see what's going on in their team, but also to develop the team's ability to take a bunch of individual contributors and get them to start to think like a team and how they're going to function. And it's just been phenomenal. So it became time to write a book, and it's almost done
Yeah.
and ready for you to give me some feedback.
I've always said that most of us don't decide to write a book. The book comes to us. And I think the book came to you. I love the concept of software, hardware, teamwear. So I can't wait to see it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, yeah, you should be. You should be. It's a fun journey. You've been on lots of journeys, right? So if somebody looked at like just a part of you, they might see a martial artist. They might see a creative photographer. They might see this wow, New York City leadership coach. Notice how my head started shaking when I did that. Oh, so if they saw all those things, what part of your story would you want them to see first?
That's a tough question. To me, they're all different chapters, but they all have the same
Mhm.
theme underneath them. And there's been a progression throughout all of them,
Mhm.
which is first just like my commitment to people and my curiosity about people. And I think it used to be a point
I
of
love
it used to be a point of security. I think if I know I struggled as a photographer in the beginning, especially being here in New York. There was an idea of what it looked like to be a New York photographer, which was, fashion and
Oh, I can
celeb.
imagine.
And
Yes.
I was in that world, and I kind of looked the part, but I never felt that was doing what I thought it was supposed to do.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
you're supposed to carve out a look in a way that's that's person's aesthetics, for instance. And I noticed that over time, a lot of my stuff seemed a little more introspective and darker. And I'd
Mhm.
get somebody in front of me, and I was not shooting big, happy, like facade stuff, but it was always more introspective
Right.
stuff. And it took me a while to realize that that's because that's actually what I tend to focus on. And it's been the same whether it's been my personal practices, my background in films, photography, and then even with
Mhm.
companies. It's
Mhm.
always been the human side of things. Um,
Mm.
there's always strategy,
Mhm.
there's always technical stuff to focus on, but what I realize is people struggle with the messiness of human being. And to
Oh,
me,
yes.
that was where the gold was. And for years, I led these large transformational leadership programs where I got to be coached and then went on to lead and coach many others from all different backgrounds. And when you're in a setting like that, when you have, you know, college students next to a grandma, next to a CEO, next to somebody who's in
Mhm.
between
Mhm.
things, and you start to see that they're all dealing with the same fundamental things in their own way. It really helps me dissolve the perception of these vast differences between people.
Yeah. 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 And I see that in the photography. Obviously, it's core to the coaching transformation work that you do. But it's harder for me to imagine it in that jujitsu athleticism part of your life. So, has jujitsu, because I don't know much about jujitsu. It's a martial art.
Yeah.
That's as far as I need to go. But are there things about jujitsu that has deepened your appreciation for the human condition or even reset how you look at things like in the middle of crisis?
Well, on a personal level, it's something that I never,
Yeah.
ever, ever thought I'd be doing. I
Interesting.
had
Okay.
I had years of chronic pain and migraines that doctors couldn't figure out. I thought it was just some permanent condition I had. I got
Mm.
very used to
Okay.
just always having something wrong with me that nobody could figure out. I
Mhm.
assumed there was something broken with me. And I actually had some people around me who were really into it, who kept telling me, I got to get into this. And I would go watch. And I was like, there's no way in hell I would ever do that. My body was my enemy. And
Yeah.
spent
Okay.
years just doing anything I could to get some relief. And so, first off, there's been a huge mental transformation from somebody who was fearful and avoidant
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I mean, even my relationships to like other men, you know, men don't want to be dominated by another man. I think there's a lot of psychology that goes into the dynamics.
Yeah. I think there's something people don't know about you. You're super tall.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's even
Aren't you
worse.
like
Yeah,
8 foot tall?
yeah. That's 6'4", but yes.
Okay. And because to me, that's an important point of the domination thing is when you're that tall, you don't even have to speak. They don't see any of your brain before most people are immediately struck by your physicality because you're taller than normal,
Well, and
right?
at this point, I'm like I'm evened out a little bit, but back earlier on in life, where I think we often develop our sense of who we are and who I am in
Yeah.
relationship to other people. I grew 12
Yep.
inches in 1 year, and yeah, I think I was something like 6'3", 155 pounds when I went to college. I was this string bean that
Hmm.
looked like I was 12, and
155. Oh my God.
I mean, it
On a
was
6'3" frame. Yeah.
so. I
Yeah.
mean, any idea of anything's physical happening would it kind of gets you at your core. You know that you wouldn't know what to do. So that I think is a huge psychic weight on
Yeah.
any human being, but if you think about men in particular. So I absolutely know that world in depth from years of never feeling like I had that. So for me, the
Hmm.
transformation with martial arts, I credit some people that I met along the way who are really great. It's allowed me there is a confidence that comes obviously with knowing, okay, you can probably
Hmm.
defend yourself and defend other people if something ever happened. But
Yeah.
that's never what it's about. It's something that you show up to day after day. You
Hmm.
start off, jiu-jitsu for anybody. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. It's a very nerdy rabbit hole, but it's what happens on the ground. It's grappling. People call it like chess with the body.
Okay.
It's kind of like a language. If you try to learn a foreign language or jump into people who are fluent speakers and you don't, think of that, but with your body. Yeah. And so
Okay.
when you
Yep.
start, it pushes every single button about your own insecurities. You're being
Hmm.
tossed around like a sack of potatoes by people who are smaller than you. And you
Yep.
go through this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like anybody who's got a fragile ego doesn't last. You have to
Yeah.
understand that, like, if I'm going to gain any mastery at something,
Hmm.
the first levels are
Hmm.
just appreciating how little you know. And so, yeah, like I think we used to watch UFC and I watch all that, but it's the incremental practice of showing up every day and the kind of humility
Hmm.
that it takes. And there's such
Hmm.
a deep camaraderie and respect for your other people who also choose to do that because it's not easy. It's not, but it becomes addictive
Yeah.
because you're operating in service of each other and making each other better.
Yeah.
And I think if we think about like a lot of and we have a loneliness epidemic that even the Surgeon
We
General
do.
says is on par with smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
So
I had not heard that stat.
that came from the Surgeon General.
Mhm.
And, when we think about it, like I look back and I'm like, oh, I spent years instead of being alone at night watching Netflix, I'm with a group of people that were working on stuff, or physically
Yeah.
connecting. And there's something that happens in that setting that is so much bigger than, being able to beat somebody up. That's just like
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
output. Yeah.
People need to be together and they need to be in physical contact with each other. Most of my Bay Area buddies and probably people like you see me on LinkedIn a lot. I'm known for like group selfies. But people, after a couple of years of that, have reflected people need touch. People need to be in community. And me, giving everyone a reason to compress into a small space and laugh and celebrate who we are and where we are has become like part of the fabric of a large group of people. And it's how we record happiness, how we see each other. And so I do think that like a lot of people have asked me, you're out all the time networking. How do you get anything done? And I'm like, networking is my family. Networking is how I, combat the loneliness
Yeah.
thing because I always have somebody to go be with, and there's always gonna be somebody I know there that's happy to see me there, And I think we are all looking for the ways that we can show up and be nourished and that we can nurture. And so I'm just
And
reflecting
I'm
on,
like, part of me, like, I have, you and I talk about this, I have all my woo-woo things and I can go down that road, but very rooted in reality. The science that we've only been able to really generate in the last decade or so with the breakthroughs
yeah.
in the neuroscience and our technology around it.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn this the hard way. I had really physical issues that had no answer. And you kind of grab onto whatever starts to give you a release. And over time, you start to figure
Yes.
out, like, okay, this is not just this. It's not just yoga. It's not just this. And even the science now is showing that something happens when you're around people where there is trust, where there's a sense of mutuality and camaraderie that starts to
Mm-hmm.
literally light up the brain, the heart, your endocrine system, and brings
Mm-hmm.
about healthier states. And you have people out there like Gabor Mate is a writer and speaker who reframed addiction, for instance, that
Oh,
even
okay.
addiction is not being addicted to the drug. It's the drug is the thing that allows you to get some escape from the unwanted feelings of isolation, shame,
Mhm.
depression.
Right.
And so in all the work I've done, whether it's been in transformational leadership programs, working with teams, what happens just at jiu-jitsu class, is that there is just a far more complex and sophisticated symphony that's going on inside of all of us that comes about when we are together in a safe environment, even if you're doing stuff like
Yeah.
beating each other up. And
Well,
that to
it's
me,
more than inside all of us. You know this,
right.
that it's the connections. It's that I'm going to say it's that quantum field that exists from San Jose to Manhattan, that exists from us over to Calcutta. That quantum field feeds all of us if we nurture it in the right ways.
Yeah, and I love talking about this stuff. You love talking about it. Some people might just be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But whether you get
Okay,
it,
we're all here to learn.
well, right, and whether you choose to look at it through the lens of the quantum field and all of the sciences that are opening up
Yeah.
there, some people I think find that very practical and like, hey, that actually allows me to indulge. And then
It explains a lot.
yeah, but it's also like, just look at what happens if you're at home alone and you're in your head or you're stressing out about something and you get a call from
Mhm.
your best
Mhm.
friend and how quickly
That's right.
your biology changes. Or if you're stressed out
That's right.
about money and suddenly somebody says, hey, we're doing that contract, and suddenly you see a bunch of money go into your bank account.
Mhm. Mhm.
You can start to see that whatever we think that this body and mind and whatever concoction of spirit
Mhm.
or neurobiochemistry is, that there's a lot more going on. And I know when I work with
Absolutely.
teams, it's like, well, are you just a bunch of individuals showing up to work, or are you actually a
Mhm.
team who's out to accomplish something? And when they start to identify, well,
Mhm.
what are the behaviors that make us to work best together? It's all obvious to
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah.
what are the ones
Agreed.
that detract from that? They all know.
Mhm.
Once they start to actually name it and start to commit to it, a lot of the technical stuff goes away. Because why? Because there's
Yep.
something else that starts to happen, and whether you want to call it, you know,
Mhm.
resonance, or we all know that feeling. And I think that part of what's just happened over the years in our society is that we've all kind of assumed that that's not available, and it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. We're gonna do a quick station ID
Okay.
and a call out for KPCRLP 92.9 FM from Los Gatos. I'm so proud of this community radio station. We've added 6 new shows in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. So there's been a generation of interest in what we do. It's a lot of creative music, stuff I don't listen to, but I'm entertained by, and wonderful people shepherding music and interviews and topics. So KPCR 92.9 FM, and that's at kpcr.org online, that you can check it out 24 hours a day and see what we're up to. We'd love for you to do that. So Shaun, I want to go back to the comment earlier, and I'm not going to stick there. It's just a set about your height. I had a woman that came to work for me 20 something years ago, She was about 6 foot tall, and she slouched. Strong personality, athlete, but she slouched intentionally to not be so tall. She would keep her in the South. This is when I was in Tennessee, and when leaders would come in the room, you'd stand up to greet someone. She never stood up to greet someone, and she did not want to tower over at the time, men who were at the top of the company. And she confided in me, because I actually coached her on. I said, you really should show some poise and stand up. And she said, it's not about poise. It's about not wanting to put them in a position of not seeing me the way I want to be seen. And we worked through that together. We partnered on that. So I'm just reflecting that you have learned similarly coping strategies that may diminish you, that help other people deal with their own insecurities, frankly. I think about you as a photographer. And I think about you seeing through the same scenarios with other people that you shoot. I remember, I haven't looked at your website in a long time, but I remember a beautiful black and white of an African-American woman who had a double mastectomy. Remember that? Painful shot to watch for anyone who's had anyone affected by that. And yet it was so beautiful and so beautifully shot. You saw through to her. So as a photographer, you have to notice what's not seen through the lens. You have to see into people. So how does that shape your ability to do that in remarkable ways? How does that shape how you look into organizations and people?
Well,
in the business context.
Yeah. Well, it's tricky because there's the side about myself first, right? My own relationship to myself. And
yes,
so I want to start there because that kind of dictates everything else.
Okay.
Like I said, everybody thinks I'm tall, blonde, all that stuff now, but that was never my experience of myself.
I'd love it.
I had somebody point out recently who's known me for a long time that whenever I was standing in a crowd of people, I used to spread my legs out really wide because it would bring me down to their level. And I saw somebody do it.
Oh, okay.
I saw somebody else doing it. Doing the exact same thing that I know I used to do. And it looks utterly ridiculous. Because it's super wide.
But it drops you by a few inches.
Oh, it
right?
definitely drops.
It's
so I mean, in the moment, I'm very comfortable to bring me down. But when I saw it, it struck me as so odd that person would do that. And yet, obviously I've done that many times. And also, look, I live in New York City now, but I'm from Wisconsin. I'm from the Midwest. And I just grew up in a culture that seemed to really push back against anybody who stood out. Like there's an agreement reality. They call some people call it the tall poppy, the poppy that sticks its head up, gets knocked down. I've never felt that I had that wanted to brag about things or put myself to the center. So it was years of inaccurate self-perception. Like, I coached some people who are kind of, now that I've kind of transformed all that, I coach some people who are pretty dominant males, and they're always surprised when I point out that people might be intimidated by them. And then somebody had to bounce that back to me one time, and I'm like, me? Like, what are you talking about? So, and just the physical imposition could be a thing.
Yes.
But I think that because I came from such a place of insecurity, it was hard for me to ever get too big of a head about these things. And so in the photography aspect, the actual clicking of the camera is the shortest part of the shoot.
Oh, right.
It's like, you set your lights and you do all that stuff, which, the technical side. But if you're going to do a portrait setting, and especially a creative portrait of somebody, it's imperative that it's inherently an unnatural thing to do a photo shoot.
Yes.
So how do you get the person feeling natural? And that always came from just getting to know them and getting their experience and having them have the experience that you get their experience, and that they get to be human around you. They don't have to have their shield up, their pretense, their worries, their concerns. And so I don't know, in some ways, maybe I come off as tall and intimidating other people. And I think other people, like, I would hope that I make them comfortable enough so that doesn't even show up.
Yeah.
We never really know
Yeah.
what people think of us anyway.
Well, I think about you then being in Calcutta with sex workers
Yeah.
and children who are in that region in the red light districts in Calcutta. And you have to have something about your soul that reaches people, because I see those communities as being very vulnerable
Incredibly.
in that part of the world. Incredibly vulnerable. And you found ways to document their resilience and their beauty. And I mean, for me, that's just remarkable, because it's almost like living that life is a lot of loss, a lot of dreams that never happened. And you're helping them rebuild their identity by shooting and capturing images that serve to elevate them, that serve to bring their picture to the world. So what did that experience teach you? Because there's one thing to do a portrait,
Right.
and it be that contrived environment. There's another to go into someone's, I'll say home is a broad community statement, to go into someone's home that is unlike anything we've ever seen and try to bring their humanity to the photos.
Yeah. It's been a whole process over there. I wound up there by
Okay.
complete accident one time. I got really sick in India. They thought I had tuberculosis. I was down. I had finally gained some weight, but then got dropped back down. And then I got down from 6'4".
TB?
I got
I didn't know TB still existed.
in
And
India.
now I
Does.
sound really naive, but it does.
Yeah. I'd
Okay.
gotten sick. That's the whole other story about how that happened. But I wound up in Calcutta to get medical attention. I was down to 165 pounds after proudly, finally putting on some weight later in life. They threw me in an isolation ward. They were freaked out. And turns out I was not, I did not have TB. I did have a severe lung infection. And I was really grappling with this choice of, I could go back to New York, where I was kind of like a celeb photographer shooting fashion weeks. Like it was starting to get old. And so I could go back to that, or just stay here and see what happens. And Calcutta is it's the former capital of India. It's really wild. It's a sleepy but massive town, millions and millions of people. It's very poor. And it's also, because of Mother Teresa's legacy, a lot of Westerners doing service work there. And inadvertently, I ended up essentially going out every day to a different project. And through that, I started to inadvertently do a bit of a survey about social impact projects, what works, what doesn't, and have a documentarian at heart. And toward the end of one trip, I met these Spanish nurses who said, "Oh, we're helping an organization out in the red light district. You should come there." And I went down, and it was not a topic that I was unfamiliar with, but I'd never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
These twisty, turny back alleys with the, people lived in one small room that was their kitchen, their living room, their bed, everything. And I got introduced to a woman named Ormi Bastu, who's the founder and director of New Light, which is located right in the heart of the red light district. Fast forward, I'm a board member for the U.S. organization that funds, collects funds over here. I'm going over there in November for their 25th anniversary.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of locked in with them. But in the beginning, though, we didn't know any of this. I was just this new photographer. I was trying to get a break from all of my film production work. And she said, look, I can give you my blessing, but you're going to have to forge your own relationships with these people. And it just meant showing up every day, presence, just being there. I'd be tutoring their kids sometimes who were, being housed and cared for at New Light. And it took time.
Yeah.
And little by little, people saw that what I was doing was bringing dignity to their experience. I would make some of the teenagers my photo assistants and translators. And so that became really cool. And I was friends with some of they're now grown adults, and I'm still friends with them today. I'm in touch now with kids who are full grown adults that I've known since they're in diapers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, really
that's pretty cool.
Sense of time, right? But there was this one woman who lived right near the entrance to New Light, who I saw probably more than anybody. I knew her daughter. I'd tutored her daughter in reading, but every time I came by her to offer to take a photo, she just waved me away with disgust. like, get out of here.
Oh,
And I was like,
interesting.
yeah, no, to the point where it became a bit of a like, what's up? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
come
What
on.
I do?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And one day when I was out with, his name's OBG, he's now grown. And at the time he was a teenager. I'm like, would you ask her what is up? What is going on? And so he translates for me, and he finally translates back and he says, she says every time he wants to take a photo, she's not dressed up.
See?
And I was
Oh,
like,
and
oh
isn't
my,
that a story for life? Because we all think someone else thinks X of me, when the majority of the time, truth is that it's about them.
it's always,
This
I
was
mean, it
about
was, by the way, it was so obvious the second it was said. I didn't know the difference. I
Yeah.
was like, hey, it's a gritty photo.
Oh, and your heart didn't care. Your heart didn't care if she was wearing a burlap sack or the most exquisite silk.
Yeah.
You saw her.
I was her.
But she wanted
She wanted to be seen.
Yeah.
If she's going to ask me to take her photo, she wanted to be pretty. And I just, once I got it, I mean, thank God I had a translator. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think of that. I will never ask you to take a photo again, but if you would like to, you tell me when, and you get to tell me how it goes. And I remember her, she just gave a long pause, and you could see she's thinking about it. And then she just finally just said, come back tomorrow afternoon. And the next day, she was all dressed up.
I love it.
I've photographed her many times now. We're like and it's funny when sometimes now since COVID and all that, it's been a long time. There'll be gaps, there'll be new people in that area. So when I show up again, I mean, the roof lines are up to here on me. I'm always trying not to cut my face on all this stuff. And, people have a curiosity about, well, who's this guy? And there's just plenty of them. Like, oh, no, and she's always the first one.
No, he's one of us.
She goes, but it's somebody who I thought hated my guts. And it was just, and honestly, that was one of those spark moments that informed what I do professionally, because it was like, if you think of like a lot of our coaching calls and what we're dealing with when we listen to people, most of what screws people up in businesses is a lot of the interpersonal stuff.
Oh, 100%.
Like this person,
never the technology,
this person,
never the product.
like
always the people.
Some incident, like that person did not care about what I needed. I got to now protect myself. I start to withdraw. I start looking for another job because these people don't care about me. This is for that person always does this. And people start to build these stories in their head, and it starts to cause division. And we're told that in business that's not appropriate. And I'm like, no, you need that. It's costing companies so much money, retention, what it takes to recruit, train in, get some up to speed to replace them again. What happens when the knowledge goes out the door? Like, these are things that are never captured in a P&L report, but it's just what's happening in between people. And somehow I think that's something we just lost. And we just kind of lost that business is not a category that absolves you from humanity. In fact, I think we're facing more and more now, especially with AI, especially with more complexity in places and more external change, that unless you actually are a unit moving forward together and know how to solve issues amongst yourselves and how you are going to function in difficulty, I mean, we can't sustain the level of strain, burnout, attention fragmentation that's been going on. And yet I think the solutions are right there in front of us. And that's back alleys of Calcutta. I never thought would be informing my coaching and consulting practice.
Yeah. Well, I go back to this woman who didn't want you to take her photo. And I think that you have now, through many iterations of photo sessions with her, you've helped create a story around her and all the people that you photograph. But do you think that story can reset people? That the narrative that we create visually or in our thought leadership and writing, do you think that changing the story or amplifying the elements of the story about where people want to be can reset people and teams?
I mean, look, I'm a perfect example. What we just talked about before, my story was that my body was broken. Something wrong with me. So when I was more of a student of these transformational education techniques, stuff that I later went on to
Mhm.
lead, it dawned on me one day, we all live inside of stories. We come up with stories about who
Yes.
that person is, and that's how we treat them.
If anybody recognizes this, we're having a landmark moment.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
both
Bailey's done
landmarking.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's okay. That's a good program. So
it was amazing.
I wanna
I mean, it's the
give
almost
credit to
the
the
word
things
of
we took away from that,
the word
right?
transformation in our culture stems from them,
Yes.
and their methodologies are some of the best I've ever seen. Um,
Mhm.
but if you
Mhm.
think about it, yeah, we think they're real, but really they're interpretations and stories about what happened and why I am the way
Yeah.
I am, or the way that
Yes.
person is, or if you listen to anybody tell you a story about a conflict they're having, you will hear that they
Yeah.
only tell you a narrative based on the little bits of information they have. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, and I'd say almost all the time, you find out, no, the story, what was really going on was actually much more complex or very different than that story. So all
Yeah.
that to say is we all live inside of stories about who we are, who other people are. And so for
Yep.
me, I had to catch at one point that, oh my God, I keep saying my body's my enemy. Well, that
Right.
sounds like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I gotta do something about that. I remember the moment. I'm like, well, no, I created a new story, which is my body can heal. And wouldn't you
Mhm.
know it, it started healing. And so, fast
Yeah.
forward, I'm
Yeah.
doing more physical stuff now than
Yeah.
I could in my 20s, and having more fun and all of that. So yes, stories operate at the individual level,
Mhm.
relational level, like who you are
Yep.
for me or to me, my
Mm.
idea.
Mm.
And we have very little awareness that we are creating our reality. We are creating how people
Yeah.
interact with us. All you got to do is go to
Yes.
a room, and why is
Yep.
somebody friends with that person? The other person thinks it's awful. Like, well, guess
That's
what?
right. I remember I've done 1,000 Orange Theory classes. And I remember this new woman coming into our the possessive, our Saturday morning class. Super muscular, super well built, wearing a weight belt. And for people, that weight belt is like a wide belt that supports your back when you're lifting. That is not the scene at Orange Theory.
No.
People don't do that. You've done Orange Theory. We have so many things in
I
common.
know.
But yeah, but it immediately, like, all the women, you could tell we were just shooting looks at each other like, "Who is she?" And she wore lifting gloves. I mean, in Orange Theory, you can lift, like, up to 50-pound hand weight, so you can get pretty, or even there's bigger ones, but I never picked up bigger. But it's not a wear weightlifting
No.
gloves, wear a belt. And people were kinda, and I think we were just jealous because she was so physique-wise perfectly built. And we were all kinda giving her a hard time amongst ourselves,
Right.
not accepting her into our little coffee clatch of Saturday morning, 9:30 AM
No,
people
weekend
who had been
warriors.
together for hundreds of classes, weekend warriors, and found out later that she had I think she was in a car accident and had massive back issues and, like, debilitating spine issues, and had healed herself, had come and was a, I'll say, quasi-professional weightlifter, but she always protected herself
Really.
because that was her sensitivity after being hurt, through something, and so she was just trying to be there to do a workout. And there we were all kind of like kerfuffled because the hen house was active because she was wearing exercise equipment.
For
It's what
shame.
people need. So stories we
I
create
know.
around people when we don't know their story. And that's why it's so important for people like you and me to help other people shine the light on the beauty of their stories. That's why I think we do a service to the world by helping the world see everybody's not what they look like. They're not the beanpole kid that's always rubbing his head, that there's so much more than that. But if they can't amplify it, then it's our service to do that.
I had just an example of this. So what we talked about the book and what I'm working on, but the methodology when
Uh-huh.
TeamFlow Architecture, I create custom cadences of questions that go out to team members, and the leader gets
Yes.
the answers back.
Okay. Yep.
And I was dealing with a client who they said, "Hey, we're coming out of a bankruptcy. People have been really stressed
Mhm.
out, doing double duty. We would like to do something about
Yep.
that, but I don't know what." I said, "I'm going to put that'll be some of the questioning." And so the first week we did it, one of the questions was stating what I just did. we're coming out of this period. We want to check in with you on a scale of 1 to 10. What's your stress?
Yep.
Immediately, one of the replies came back, 9 out of 10. So on
Wow.
my coaching call with the leader, I said, what did you do? He said, well, I went and spoke to her. And she said, the first thing, she said, well, thanks just so much for even asking. And he said, well,
Yeah.
great. What do we do? Talk to me. You know, he was really great with her. And they had their conversation. And he tells me, he's like, but the funny thing is later that afternoon, she came back to me and she says, you know, I was thinking about our conversation. I think I might create a lot of that stress myself. And it was just this moment of like, just to be asked, just to have it dignified. Now, what ended up happening, I just found out because I visited a group of these folks on a Zoom call recently. That woman was on the call. And she told the story from her perspective because it turned out that just the notion of being asked and having to listen and having her experience, she had not told anybody, but she started giving my questions out to her team because she realized I want to be that person for other people too. And she started telling her own stories of what her team came to her with when she started asking them. And again, it was just in that asking, they're now talking about their relationships and working out how they work together. And it was just a simple, fundamental thing that is, and it goes back. There's a guest I had on my podcast, Bob T, wrote a book called Leading with Questions.
Yep.
And
we talked about that a few months ago. I remember.
And, you know, there's also a couple other books out there. And, you know, a lot of our background is inquiry-based, Socratic inquiry, that the question is actually oftentimes more important than the answer. And so I think we're oftentimes in a work circumstance or a family dynamic or a relationship dynamic where we just interact with, well, this is the way that it is. And we don't really think that it could be anything different. Now, sometimes it's because we get a big payoff for keeping our complaints there. We love to have our complaints and we love to be up here and these dumb people or whatever it is. When you start asking questions, things start flowing and start moving. And it's funny that quality we're talking about between people, when the things we really love, just asking those questions can be such a fundamental access to that. And it's just so simple.
I love it. All right, it's time for another station break. So, everyone, you are listening to KPCRLP 92.9 FM out of Los Gatos, but also a couple of sister stations. You're listening to us today on KMRTLP 101.9 FM out of Santa Cruz, which has to be beautiful today because it is a gorgeous day. And as of just recently, you're listening to us on KVBE LP 91.1 FM out of Portland. We opened up a station in Portland, so it's very exciting to be expanding our reach, and especially for the musical programming we do and the people programming that I'm so fond of, that we're able to share that with such a broad audience. So back to you, Shaun Mader, on Reset with Tanya. I like a lot of your thought leadership that is not just about people or teams, but it's about society. Because I think you have a fundamental belief that working more at the root level causes shifts in society. And that's why you do what you do. So what do you think the reset is that society needs right now? Because clearly, I think most of us think we're headed to one and that we need it. I'd be curious about your observations about the reset that you think society needs in order to be the best we can.
Yeah, it's a profound question. So I don't know if I'm going to nail it on the first take here, you know?
Because whatever you see and whatever you think has value, and you study this and you study people. So you have a more informed opinion than most.
Well, so thank you. And yes, I do think about this a lot. And I think to answer that question, we have to recognize that society has gone through an incredible amount of change in a very short amount of time.
Absolutely. Yes.
But that it's not just about the internet and about the iPhone or all that stuff. If we back up just another 100 years, you talk about humanity that was largely agrarian, where people's rhythms were more in tune with nature and they had a connection. At a certain point with industrialization, humans had to conform to fit into factories in a more machine world. So, in addition to the changes that we've personally witnessed in our lifetimes, we kind of came into this world already a bit disconnected and with what I like to call like a limited menu of what we even
Mm.
have to choose from. So, if we start to now fast forward to today and we look at, let's take for instance, how much time we spend on devices, it's hard to appreciate the limitations in what we can even see and interact with. Like, where would we even look for a reset? Most of the
Mhm.
places we would look that seem logical will provide no answers. And if anybody's ever heard the term "the medium is the message" by Marshall McLuhan,
Mm.
it's
Mhm.
one of these kind of like phrases that I think I've thought about for decades now, and it just keeps getting deeper. But if you think about it, the internet is still all ones and zeros. There's only certain things that can be digitized. And it's a two-dimensional, look, it's an audio and visual
Mhm.
format. So
Right.
we're now in this world of AI, which is now taking in all of the data on the internet, which is vast and wide, but it's still just a very
Yeah.
narrow spectrum of experience of life.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
just the audio and visual component. So oftentimes I find that when we think of like, well, what's the reset that we need? We look to what we can see. We look
Mhm.
to what we can know. But how we come to know things has become very engineered and narrowed down. So imagine it's
Oh,
kind of like, I think life is like this with blinders on. I don't see a solution inside of these blinders. I don't know that I have blinders on, but I don't see anything. And so if we're thinking from
Mhm.
that perspective, you're like, well, what's the reset? What do we really need? Oftentimes it's never going to appear to us because we think it's going to exist inside this very limited spectrum that
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
life and culture has whittled us down to. And at the same time, I would say that the solution is staring us right in the face the entire time. And the reset is us reconnecting with ourselves and each other.
Mhm.
I have an unconventional educational background, but one way to talk about it has been very heavy on the humanities. And we
Mhm.
can look at the last
Mhm.
30 to 40 years where the humanities became a throwaway term that most people would mock. You know, when I was a literature major going to college, the joke I heard most was, do they teach you how to say, would you like fries with that?
Mm.
Because it was so disregarded. You're not qualified to do anything. It's very dismissive.
Right.
But as we find ourselves now in a place where we are repeating things that have happened historically time and time again, and you watch as a population that is fundamentally illiterate about those topics
Mhm.
go make classic mistakes over and over and over again and fall for the same
Yes.
tricks of manipulation and propaganda.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like, we've been here before, but how would you know that? Well, these fundamental questions are in the humanities. And somewhere along the way, we gave up on the idea that we could have a say in how our society goes.
Mhm.
And so I think the first part of a reset is the recognition that most of the world we as humans have created for us, we serve it. We created markets. We created quarterly profits. Now we built a system where we serve the market. The market does not serve us. We created this technology, but we serve the technology. The companies making money off this need our attention to feed its algorithms to make its profits.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not necessarily there to serve us. And so, right in front of us, I think, is this really obvious but hard to grasp concept that the only way quality of life gets created and built is when we see that our lives get better when we're not as focused on ourselves and that we're operating in
Oh,
service
yeah.
of others.
Right. Right.
And I should,
Agreed.
there's this video, I recommend everybody go Google this and look it up. It's called the Long Spoon Allegory. I don't know what the background is on it, but it's maybe a 2 minute long video, animated, and it's these emaciated, bleak, sad looking people all around a cauldron of soup, but they have these massive, massive spoons so big that they can't reach their own mouths. And no matter how much food they have,
Oh,
they're
wow.
wasting away until one person has the idea to take a spoon, and the other people help support that spoon as he reaches across and feeds the person across from him. And then everybody gets the idea. And
Wow.
suddenly, like, wait a
Amazing.
second, these spoons aren't for just for me, they're for feeding other people. And if I feed others, I too get fed. And you see the whole thing come into color, fill out. And I kind of think it's a really fitting metaphor for our modern life that has, we somehow created the means to sow our own separateness, our own isolation, our own anxiety,
Yeah.
our own depression. And
Yep.
I think people often find it resist admitting that. They resist reaching out to people. Like there's some shame in saying,
Mm-hmm.
I want more connection in my life. I want more love. I want more friendship. Like I'm working so hard, but I'm not seeing I'm not actually any happier for it. And it's almost like a point of shame in our culture to say like something's wildly off here. So I think when we start there, then people as individuals can start to see like, wait a second, I have gifts to contribute here. I'm really interested in like, look, I teach jiu-jitsu once a week. But I know the difference it's made for some of the students, and it's something that gives me so much pleasure. But it's like people can give in so many different ways and boost the quality of life, and that's what we're built for. You're supposed to feel good when you make other people feel good.
Yeah. So one of the ways that you're giving back is writing your book. I don't think any normal people, we're normal people. I don't think normal people go on the journey of writing a book unless there's something they desperately want to say and to share. And writing a book, it forces clarity. You know, when all those things rolling around in your experience need to be clear for you so that you can clearly deliver it for other people. So I'm curious, what have you discovered about yourself in that search for clarity as it relates to writing your book?
Oh, I mean, it's just been another process of, I talk about the white belt, starting out and you're all over the place and
Yep.
Classic white belt is like they expend a ton of energy accomplishing not a lot. Right. And that's how again, this was just yet another topic where I had to start at the bottom and figure it out. And what I had to first grapple with is there's certain things that occur to me very naturally that are obvious, but that it's a product of connecting a lot of pieces from a lot of different influences. And it's simply not enough to have that thought in my head. And it doesn't actually amount to anything unless I can make it accessible to other people.
Yep.
And that became the kind of guiding discipline in writing the book. Like I get all this stuff, but the second I start writing, it's all over the place. Well, it's a little bit of this, and then if you connect that to this, and that would be completely unintelligible for somebody. So there's the way that I might speak about it to somebody who, I don't know, is into the same area where you can kind of just have these strange little meta conversations and be tangential. That was just completely insufficient to make something that I could put in somebody's hand and say, hey, here's the blueprint for you as a leader and your people. So boy, yeah, it was a humbling process. I'm in the home stretch. I think I've at least got a blue belt here.
You found your path of clarity.
Yeah. But it really,
and it is in service.
And it's totally in service. But that's what I had to keep in mind. Like I can't be entertained with my own ideas. That's really, it's entertaining to me, but if somebody else can't grasp it, I've failed. And that became the discipline. And I hope we're in the home stretch here. I hope that with regularity, if I put this in somebody's hand and they read it, that it's going to make sense. It's going to be obvious. They're going to be able to incorporate into their life. And because that's what's going to make a difference.
Good.
But humbling.
All right. Have you done improv? I don't remember if we've talked about that.
No, but I technically have a theater degree. I love comedy and improv. I hope we're not doing it.
You give a lot of gifts. I know you're familiar with the improv concept of gifts. Yeah. When you give people a hook to continue the conversation, and you naturally give gifts in continuing the conversation.
Oh, well, thank you. I was hoping we weren't going to
And
put
now
that
I
on
got
the
stuck on, the improv story and I forgot what the hook was, but the hook was leading to, I think it was the in service of concept. But I like to end my podcast with a lightning round. That's something I've been doing for a bit now. So I ask quick questions for, hopefully quick answers, but the way I build relationships, they're never quick. They're always a little bit of a dialogue. So let's hit maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 lightning questions for you.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Clearly, I love your photography because it's so differentiated. So what's the picture that you want to take that you've not taken yet?
I don't know.
Huh?
Because
Okay.
the part that is so pleasant to me is, can I tune in enough to discover it in the moment? And it reveals itself versus me chasing
Yeah.
it. And so I don't know. Maybe it's yet to be created.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that. And it is the art of expression. So it's not just what I like to call the coffee table books and the photos that are just these big picturesque views off the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. That's not the photo I'm looking for. The photo I'm looking for it's indescribable because it's the one that absolutely captures the essence of someone's soul.
Well, and I'll tell you
You
this.
can't plan for that.
I'll tell you this. I always used to look at the people who I looked up to and assume that they just had something that I didn't, that they had.
Right.
And that everything that, there's a particular photographer, Albert Watson, whose work I've loved forever. You look at his work, you're like, wow, like I could never do something like that. And the thing that really opened it up for me was that famous photo that he has was by accident. He said, I actually been shooting for 2 days and didn't like anything. And then the model was actually offset, and he just happened to see her head in a shadow and saw this outline. And he's like, that's the shot over there after 2 days on a Vogue shoot. And I was like, okay.
On a Vogue shoot,
yeah, I mean,
highly orchestrated.
yeah, and 2 days where he's not even liking anything. And I'm like, and that's how it's gone, is that everything I plan, great, you can fulfill on it, but it's always the shot that I could never see coming. That is the one that actually meant something the most. But you kind of had to be in there, and you kind of had to be open to something unexpected happening.
Okay. I love it. Back to our shared beloved India. What's the moment that is the most indelible memory you have that kind of opened your heart in India?
I used to go and live like a monk periods of time in between shooting gangster hip hop videos and weird stuff like that. Whatever I could do to pay the rent in New York City. I remember I was living in an ashram and I had an opportunity to do something cool. It was like a motorcycle trip up to the headwaters of the Ganges. It sounded cool and badass, but there was another option to go do a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that was a moment where I'm like, what kind of man are you going to be? You're going to go do this flitty, thing where you're probably breaking your legs on a motorcycle, or are you going to go do the thing that terrifies you, which was actually sitting for 10 days in silence. And I'm glad I chose the latter. It led to many years of doing that. But I remember that being like, that was probably more of a rite of passage in life than a lot of the other things.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. And we could have a whole episode on that.
Yeah. I don't want to the can of worms just at this late hour.
It's all good. It's all good. Tell me about a book that changed how you look at changing society.
I remember specifically Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent was a pivotal book. And then I don't even know if this is available, but they made a documentary off of it. And then there was another book made off the documentary that was expanded. And it was in college, and it was, I look at the media landscape that we're in right now, and frankly, I think it's designed so that you can't really tell what's true and what's not anymore.
Okay, I understand.
And I think back then it was so helpful to have somebody dedicated to how we take information in, how it interacts at a societal, governmental level. And I look back now and see, like, I'm very grateful for that, because it's allowed me to observe the transitions over time, and also just be able to make sense of the world in a way that gives me some surrounding and some foundation.
Love it. Love it. All right. So who's the best? No, not best. Who's the most trusted leader that you've ever had visibility to? And I'm not saying who have you met, but I'm saying as you look out across what we know about leaders in society for centuries, who's the most trusted leader
You know,
that you?
I have something that just comes to mind, and somebody that very few people will know. It's somebody that I've known through my transformational education. I'm not a
Okay.
public figure, but I'll give her a shout out here.
Okay.
Her name is Angie Mattingly. She's a profound leader, a leader of leaders, and a healer. I don't know if she knows it, but I have a nickname for her, the Diamond Cutter. And it's
I
because
love it.
in a room full of chaos, she could create a space that called everybody to really straighten up and come to
Precision.
reality,
Yeah.
but with such an
Mhm.
ease, cut through and get to the heart of the matter in a way
Mhm.
that not only
Mhm.
dealt with whatever was going on, but that people really discovered who they were in the process, and people got to
Mhm.
be bigger than they knew themselves in her presence. And I was fortunate to spend a lot of time around her, and she was she's a true master. Somebody who took it very seriously,
Yeah.
had an
Yeah.
incredibly high level of integrity, and was very serious and aware of her role in providing that. It's just few people who I've seen who have reached that level of mastery.
Yeah. I love it. And people may not recognize the name, but the way you've described what differentiates her style of leadership, I think everyone would recognize and value and wish that we all could be a little bit more of that. So beautiful, beautiful description of her. You'll have to make sure that she hears about this episode so that she can take some joy in what she has modeled for others. So thank
I
you for
hope
that.
she will. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Good. So we've covered the gamut of you, from martial arts, photography, leadership, India, storytelling, all those things. And you said at the very beginning that the common thread for you across all those was your deep curiosity and interest about people.
Yeah.
So I think it shows. I think it's part of your narrative. I love that we've had a chance to talk about it today. For other people who want to eventually buy your book, but for other people who want to watch you on your journey and be part of it in some way, how can people get in touch with you or see you operate?
LinkedIn is Shaun Mader,
Yep.
ShaunMader.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Good.
FrictionToFlowConsulting.com is the website.
Okay, good.
I grudgingly do social media, but so I am available. But reach out to me through either one of those, and yes, if there's anything I can provide, we can definitely start the conversation there.
I love it. We'll put all those in the show notes. So
Awesome.
today on Reset with Tanya, we've seen Shaun Mader for the fullness of who he really is, from brown belt jiu-jitsu master to photographer to leadership. And you said you used the word mastery with Angie, but I think that you have mastered the skill and the art of amplifying others through your connection to them. So it has been absolutely wonderful to spend time with you talking about the art of Shaun Mader and all the different ways that you build resilience and purpose, not just for you, but with others. So thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. It's been such a pleasure. I appreciate it.
It has been wonderful. So everyone here signing off from KPCR 92.9 FM in Los Gatos, as well as KMRT LP 101.9 in Santa Cruz and KVBE LP 91.1 out of Portland. We are so happy to have spent some time today with you, with Shaun Mader. We do this, Shaun. We do this little heart thing. So this tells everybody that's what we're sending out. Good heart. Good heart. I bet you don't do that a lot. Get your flexibility going. So everyone have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks for joining us on Reset. Remember, transformation is a journey, not a destination. So until next time, keep exploring what's possible. I'm Tanya Long, and this is Home. This is Reset.